All right, so good morning, class. Today we're talking about the Scarlet Letter terms. I want to start with the term leech. We've talked about this before. This is the name, of course, applied to anybody? Chillingworth, because, of course, the use of leeches used in medieval medicine. Again, the doctor would prescribe a leech to be applied to your forehead, and then they would flip you upside down and all the blood would rush to your head, and supposedly the leech would filter the blood, taking out the bad things in your blood and then reintroducing it to your bloodstream filtered, and so you were healthier. And if you believe that, I have some land in Florida, southern Florida, I'd like you to buy. All right, but that name stuck, and leeches, in fact, were used in medicine. So a doctor is synonymous with a leech. Of course, we can look at that as a figurative term that Chillingworth was leeching onto Dimmesdale, okay, and causing him to be, in fact, the opposite, causing him to be ill. And we'll talk more about that when we get to the end of the novel. Just what was Chillingworth doing to Dimmesdale? Remember, they lived together, and they would always have long discussions, and Dimmesdale would take Chillingworth's potions. All right, now, secondly, the romance novel. The romance novel, of course, balances historical detail with supernatural events. And I guess you want me to write that in there. So let me write Chillingworth here. All right, so a romance novel balances historical detail with supernatural events. We've heard about the real-life historical figures. Isaac Johnson is one, and Hutchinson is another one. A third one we met out in the forest, the Apostle Eliot. So be aware that he, too, is also a real-life character, a missionary to the natives. So we have these real-life events set in a real place, the Massachusetts Bay Colony in the 1640s in Boston. So a lot of the details are real. But of course, there are the supernatural events. The letter glows in the dark, supposedly has some kind of special powers. The meteor looking like a letter A, and so on. So these are all supernatural events. We see the devil in the woods and Mistress Hibbins as a witch and all of that. So combining real-life details with supernatural events. Any questions there? Okay, so next we go to our favorite topic that we talked about on Friday, and that, of course, is diction. Diction, as we learn, is word choice and sentence length. So Hawthorne's diction consists of Elizabethan language, complex sentences, and strong vocabulary. And as we indicated, we believe that Hawthorne wrote the book in this way to mimic one of his themes, which is that life is difficult. And so it's not easy reading the novel because life is not easy. And he wanted to mimic that in the actual diction of his work. Of course, it's very challenging. You've rewarded yourself by finishing the book now. That in and of itself deserves a pat on the back. So give yourself a pat on the back if you've finished the novel, because you've really made it through what is arguably some of the most dense English language in the American literary canon. If you ever get to Billy Budd with Mrs. Kennedy, remember this book fondly, because Herman Melville wrote a very dense book about a sailor, Billy Budd. Now, the fourth term here is the black man. The black man, the Puritans believe that the devil, a nickname for him is the black man. Other nicknames, of course, are Lucifer or Old Scratch, lives in the forest. And, of course, he's waiting to steal your soul. And he carries under his arm, of course, a heavy book that you supposedly sign in blood and sign over your soul for some earthly riches. You know, the Cubs probably signed the black man's book to win the World Series this year because there was no other way they'd ever win the World Series. So they had to sign the book. All right, any questions on diction in the black man? All right, now in the novel we have an allusion to a book called The Pilgrim's Progress. If you were in school in the 1800s, this was their Scarlet Letter. They were reading this book, this Pilgrim's Progress, and it's a popular book allegorizing the Christian journey. So it's a Christian allegory where the names of the characters mimic the values of the Christian doctrine. And of course, that would have been very well known to the people of Boston in 1640. I believe I have my dates right there. All right, pathetic fallacy. This is a sort of fancy term. Basically, nature is imitating human emotion. So on those mornings when you wake up and you're not feeling well and you look out the window and it's dark and gray, that's pathetic fallacy. That's nature imitating your mood. I guess all of us are in a good mood today because it's a bright day and it's sunny and we're having a nice day today, right? In English class, studying pathetic fallacy. Now, the example here is the brook in the forest. Remember that Pearl says to her mother that the brook looks so sad. And then they look up, and who's over there by the brook? No, it was Chillingworth the first time. Chillingworth is there at the side of the brook, and the brook is very sad. All right. And so they have the discussion in the forest between Chillingworth and Hester. And Hester implores Chillingworth to tell the truth. All right, so any question there? The Pilgrim's Progress and pathetic fallacy. Of course, we've looked at the meteor already. The meteor makes a miraculous appearance when Dimmesdale first stands on the scaffold. And of course, we talked about that being in the middle of the night and how it was inappropriate for one of the ministers to stand on the place of punishment and criminal execution. So when they find his glove there, the sexton finds his glove. He makes up a story that Satan must have put it there, certainly because Dimmesdale would never be on the scaffold. And then the meteor, of course, with its double meaning, it means, well, actually triple meaning. It means the A, of course, for Hester's adultery. It also means the A for Dimmesdale's adultery, but it also represents angel now for Governor Wilson, who has passed away. Governor Winthrop, who has passed away. All right, so where did the diction come from in the Scarlet Letter? It comes from the King James Version of the Bible. So if you are familiar with the King James Version, you'll note that it sounds a lot like what we're reading in the Scarlet Letter. So Hawthorne's diction is similar to that of the King James Version. Remember, too, that the King James Version is really one of the great books in all of human history because it took the Bible from being a text just for the priests in Latin and made it into English, which meant that if you could read English, then you could read the Bible. And up to that point, it was the priests who had to interpret the Bible for you because you didn't know how to read Latin. And so King James really did a service to mankind by translating the book into English, so the masses could finally read the Bible. There were others, but this is really the most famous one. All right, a few more. We're moving right along. Lethe and Nepenthe. If you'll remember, these were the drinks that Hester thought that Chillingworth was giving to her when they had their first interview in the prison. And these are drinks which cause memory loss and drowsiness. She thought that he might be trying to poison her and her child for acting so rashly while he was away. And that's really a very intense scene where Chillingworth is about to give Pearl, the baby, a potion to calm her down, and Hester is really worried that he's going to kill the baby right there. And he says, "What kind of man do you think I am?" Well, turns out he's like a devil, but at that point, he's still sympathetic to Hester and the baby. Number 10 is the psychological novel. As we said, this is Hawthorne's this is America's first modern novel, where it really explores the psychological mindset of the characters, dealing with this guilt and the shame and the law and the theocratic guidelines and regulations that they have to live by, and the relationships they have. And it's really an intense look into the human mind and the human heart. And then the ending also, with this sort of interactive ending, makes it what we call modern novel. You know, why do we act the way we do? All right, now I've got two more. The next one is stigmata, and these are marks or scars resembling those of Christ's marks. Christ's marks on the cross. And these are associated with God and redemption. Let me put that in there. So, of course, when we talk about a stigmata here, we're talking about Dimmesdale and what's on his chest. He's got the letter A there, and then we'll talk with the next one about, and then as we get into the last chapters, get into this ambiguous situation or ambiguity. So there's more than one meaning of a particular situation. And as said, as we'll see, as you've read the end of the novel, not quite sure what happens at the end. So in a sense, you pick the ending. What do you think happened at the end of the novel? And that'll be a question I ask you on the test. What do you think happens? How did that mark get there? What happened to Dimmesdale exactly? Okay, so any questions there? I had 15 minutes. I made it in 14 minutes, so that's good. All right, thank you, and let's get to our textbook.